What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the Playmaker's Corner podcast. I'm your host for today, Simon Voyenos, aka Coach V. It is currently April 6th when I'm recording this intro here, and we got another jam-packed week 8 of the women's college flag football season. We're going to talk about all the games between March 30th and April 5th here on all the levels, and it's heating up. There's some really important games here that have postseason implications and should be good. So without further ado, let's just hop right into it.
What is going on, folks? This is Gino with the Playmaker's Corner podcast, and I got y'all this week with the recap on what happened in the NAIA games this week here in Week 8 for the 2026 Women's College Flag Football season. We had some games with some huge postseason implications, so let's go ahead and jump right into the recap here, starting with the close games of the NAIA division here in Week 8. On Thursday, April 2nd, we had number 2 Kaiser survive a near upset to number 17 Weber by a score of 20-12. Looking at the stats here for Kaiser, Ava Wallace had a very consistent game here, going 33 for 40 for 229 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Janasia Wilson had a rushing touchdown for Kaiser. And as far as receivers go, Dakota Moberg led the way with 8 receptions for 84 yards and a touchdown. She also led the team by far in flag pulls on defense with 10. And speaking of defense, Ashley Clam had 2 interceptions, both of those super clutch to lead Kaiser to this 20-12 win here. Now looking at the stats for Weber, Luzariana Herrera went 27 for 39 for 184 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Her leading receiver was Riley Bolser with 11 receptions for 76 yards, and then Caitlin Sigmundi caught both of those receiving touchdowns here. Defensively for Weber, Savannah Cox led the way with 9 total flag pulls. Kalia Gator had 2 tackles for loss and 2 sacks. And then Riley Bolser had an interception. Another close game here in the NAIA division happened on Thursday, April 2nd. Bruton Parker got their second win of the year, 13-12 over Reinhardt. The MVP of this game was going to be Kishana Gusby with 21 carries for 240 rushing yards. I'm pretty sure that's the most we've seen all season so far. And then a 1 rushing touchdown. And then as far as Sophia Souza goes, she had a rushing touchdown and then 5 tackles for loss and 4 sacks on defense. So a great all-around game there from Souza. And speaking of defense, Karen Cummings had 11 total flag pulls, which led the team. And then Kennedy Osborne had an interception. Looking at the stats here for Reinhardt, Alexis Wilson went 30 for 42 for 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Her leading receiver was Blythe Townsell with 7 receptions for 54 yards and 1 touchdown. Townsell also led the way in flag pulls on defense with 9, also adding an interception and a tackle for loss. Another receiver that had a great game here for Reinhardt was going to be Blue McFarland with 6 receptions for 50 yards and a touchdown. Still looking at the close games here, let's check out what happened on Friday, April 3rd. Number 18, Lindsey Wilson holds on against number 25, Campbellsville for a 33-28 win there. Looking at the box score, Amaya Pablo, not her most accurate game. She went 22 for 40 for 219 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions, while also adding 92 rushing yards there. You know she's always good for that dual threat ability there. Looking at Campbellsville, Corrine Talkington actually struggled a bit in this game here, going 12 for 34, 216 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. You know, I mean, with those kinds of stats and they were still in this game, I mean, you know, that's pretty impressive there. Now, looking at the rushing stats, Talkington also had 81 rushing yards for Campbellsville. For receivers, looking at Lindsey Wilson, Jenna Lindsay, Carly Yoakley, and Gabby Cruz, as well as Cadence Wormers, all caught 1 receiving touchdown each. And then looking at Campbellsville, Monica Montez, Alex Odom, Ava Kelly, and Natalia Gomez all caught 1 receiving touchdown as well here. Defensively, Emily Good had 2 interceptions and a tackle for loss for Lindsey Wilson, and Emerson Gregory also caught 1 interception here. For Campbellsville, Woody Tamaya led the way for both teams actually in flag pulls with 13, so that's a huge game from them. And then Natalia Gomez had 2 tackles for loss, and Rashia Minix also had a tackle for loss. But we weren't done there here. Alex Odom, always great to make a huge impact in whatever game she plays in. She had 2 interceptions and 2 flag pulls in this one to add some extra value. Now, that was the only game from Friday, April 3rd, we're going to be covering as far as close games go. So let's move on now to Saturday, April 4th. We had a couple of close ones here. The first one, and most importantly, Midland with arguably the biggest upset of the year. They upset number 6 Baker 12-0 to potentially take Baker out of national championship contention. Just an unreal win there from Midland. Let's go ahead and check out the stats here. Looking at Midland's stats first here, it looks like Lotta Wolf had a great game, going 22 for 36 for 180 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 0 interceptions here. As far as receivers go, Hollandis Hodges had 8 receptions for 56 yards. Both of those led the team. And then Olivia Dominguez-Millsop caught a receiving touchdown, and so did Emily Farron. This was a huge game for Midland defensively, and they were led by Colorado's very own Melanie Archuleta with probably her best game so far in her young college career defensively here. She had 10 total flag pulls, 1 sack, and 1 interception to anchor this Midland defense and help them shut out the number 6 team in the nation. You also had Olivia Dominguez-Millsop get 2 interceptions in this one. Dominguez-Millsop, she's been here a long time. She definitely helped Midland get probably their biggest win in a couple of years here. The last close game of the week that we're going to be highlighting was the Graceland versus Southwestern game from Saturday. Graceland got the 15-8 win here over Southwestern. Looking at the stats for Graceland, Sierra Flores went 14 for 33 with 137 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception. And then Carissa Garcia got in there and went 9 for 12 for 73 yards and a touchdown with no turnovers. So Garcia definitely stepped in and brought in some great stuff there. You also had Sierra Flores. She had a rushing touchdown here. As far as receivers go, Delaney Mondino had 8 receptions for 111 yards. That definitely led the team there. And then Jada Lammy had 1 receiving touchdown. Defensively for Graceland, Kylie Overcamp had a huge game with 3.5 sacks. Sadie Lee led the way with 7 total flag pulls. Tykira Thomas had a sack. Delaney Mondino had half a sack and an interception. And finally here, Sierra Flores got an interception as well. Looking at the stats for Southwestern, they definitely struggled to move the ball offensively. Kennedy Hayes went 13 for 29 for 175 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Mary Jones had a huge game here. Colorado's very own Mary Jones with 4 receptions, 85 yards, and 1 touchdown. Viviana Solis led the team with 6 receptions. She also put up 67 rushing yards here. And then she also had an interception on defense, because that's what Solis does. She's a leader on that team and is a big part of what they do over there. Defensively here, Andrea Moon had a sack, and Lilibeth Rico led the way with 7 flag pulls. We're going to keep things rolling now and check out the rest of the landscape here of the NAIA division in women's flag football for Week 8. Starting off with Tuesday on March 31st, Midland started their big week with a 26-0 win over Graceland. So let's check out the stats here for Midland. Lotta Wolf with 28 for 37 for 254 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, but they still managed to shut them out. So that defense for Midland definitely on one this week. As far as receivers go, Alyssa Butler had 3 receptions for 89 yards and a touchdown. That led the team there. Alea Livingston had 7 receptions for 62 yards. And then Melanie Archuleta with 6 receptions for 49 yards and a touchdown. Huge week for Archuleta there. Now on defense for Midland, Looks like Hollandis Hodges had 2 interceptions, and then Emily Farron and Olivia Dominguez-Millsop both had 1 interception each. Alyssa Butler also had an interception on top of leading the team in receiving yards, and then Natasia Blaylock had 2 sacks in this one. Looking at April Fool's Day, Wednesday, April 1st, number 25 Campbellsville beat Cumberland 38-20 in their second matchup of the season as the Tigers go 2-0 versus Campbellsville this year. Looking at the stats here, Corrine Talkington with a phenomenal game. She went 23 for 35, 309 passing yards, 6 passing touchdowns, and 0 turnovers. Her leading receiver was going to be Alex Odom, no surprise there, with 7 receptions, 132 yards, and a touchdown. Natalia Gomez also caught a touchdown, and then Monica Montez and Itsan Gibbs both had 2 receiving touchdowns each. Defensively for Campbellsville, Woody Tamaya with a huge game, 8 tackles which led the team, 1 tackle for loss, 1 sack, and 1 interception. So just a good all-around game there for Tamaya. And then you also had Angeline Beecher get an interception too. For Cumberland, Madison Woodard went 30 for 46 for 286 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Her leading receiver, no surprise here, was going to be Marley Hyde with 11 receptions for 157 yards with a touchdown. And then Calliana Griggs with 2 receiving touchdowns as well here. Also on April 1st, number 5 Ottawa and Heston faced off, with the Braves getting a 27-7 win here. For Ottawa, Anna Anderson went 14 for 18 for 142 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. For receivers, Olga Sotillo led the team with 6 receptions and 55 yards, and Maya Quinn, Alyssa Linkus, and Tatiana Dos Santos, they all had 1 receiving touchdown each. Defensively for Ottawa, Jacani Washington had an interception, and Suzanne Kaufman had 2 sacks. For Heston, they actually fought pretty well in this game. Alexis Pabon had a huge game last week, but in this one she went 19 for 29 for 124 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 1 interception against that very tough Ottawa defense. Looking at the rushing stats for Heston, looks like Emma Fannenstiel had a rushing touchdown. And for receivers, Akiva Brown had 7 receptions for 49 yards. Defensively for Heston, Destiny Ortiz and Liliana Espinoza both had 1 interception each. Staying on April 1st, Southwestern got a big win here over Texas Wesleyan, shutting them out by a score of 26-0. Looking at the stats here for Southwestern, Kennedy Hayes went 16 for 23 for 177 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Her leading receiver was none other than Colorado's very own Mary Jones with 124 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns, and 5 receptions. Looking at the defensive stats for Southwestern, it was a huge game all around. Mary Jones with 2 interceptions on top of those big receiving yards. And then Lilibeth Rico also caught an interception, but it was Andrea Moon that might have been the defensive MVP with 9 total flagpoles, and that led the team. 5 tackles for loss and 4 sacks. For Texas Wesleyan here, their QB Destiny Hernandez went 14 for 23, 0 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Looking at their defensive stats, Vaughn Aiden led the way with 10 total flagpoles, and Michaela Nunez had an interception. In our last game from Wednesday, April 1st, William Woods got a huge win, 41-13 over St. Mary. Looking at the stats for William Woods, Shemaya Williams went 17 for 28 for 220 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. She also added 66 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns, adding that dual threat ability there, really showing that off. Jazzy Dunaway also had a rushing touchdown. For defensive stats for St. Mary, Keandra Thomas went 16 for 34 with 173 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. She also had 104 rushing yards there. just showing off that dual threat ability. So both QBs definitely doing that here. As far as defensive stats go for William Woods, Sam Menard with a huge game, getting 3 sacks and 7 total flag pulls. Addy Chalek also led the way with 10 total flag pulls, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 interception. And Shemaiah Williams added an interception on defense as well here, playing both sides of the ball. We are now on Thursday, April 2nd. Our first game here, number 15 ranked Life is starting a new win streak after they took down Point by a score of 25-6. Cheyenne Brooks went 16 for 28 for 205 yards with 2 passing touchdowns and no turnovers in this one. Brooks also added a rushing touchdown and 33 rushing yards there. Deshae Branham also adding a rushing touchdown. On top of that, she had 6 receptions for 48 yards as a receiver. And speaking of receivers, the leading receiver here for Life was going to be Alora, so sorry if I mispronounced this here, Niederprum with 5 receptions for 95 yards and a receiving touchdown. And Altiera Gooch got her receiving touchdown as well. For Life on defense, Layla Wade and Michaela Morgan both had an interception, and Kyra Zachary got a sack. Looking at the stats for Point, their QB Kariah Williams threw the ball a whole ton in this one, going 32 for 52, 233 yards, 1 passing touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Her leading receiver was NAIA Wesley with 11 receptions for 88 yards, and then Kenzie Fillion had 7 receptions for 54 yards, and then a receiving touchdown. On defense, NAIA Wesley had a sack. Next here on Thursday, in a battle between 2 top 10 squads, number 7 St. Thomas took their first of 2 losses on Thursday against number 1 Warner by a score of 47-7. Catherine Hutchinson had a huge game, going 32 for 41, 253 yards, and 5 passing touchdowns. He also had Maggie Lauber get a rushing touchdown. As far as receivers go, the freshman sensation Avalon Lux Offerman with 12 receptions, 78 yards, 1 receiving touchdown. Maggie Lauber added 2 receiving touchdowns and then 8 receptions for 77 yards there. And then Anna Vincenzini and Kaylee Thomas both caught a receiving touchdown as well here. Defensively, speaking of Anna Vincenzini, she led the way with 9 total flag pulls, 2 tackles for loss, and 2 interceptions. Lauren Clark doing her thing here, adding to her Defensive Player of the Year campaign with 5 total flag pulls and a sack. Omariah Gordon started off her week here with 2 interceptions in this one, but I have a feeling she may have a few more coming her way here as we get on with this recap. And finally here, Angeline Bunting with a receiving touchdown. Let's briefly look now at the stats for St. Thomas. Their leading receiver was going to be Jasmine Henry with 13 receptions for 80 yards, and Alex Harris caught 5 total passes for 51 yards and a touchdown. Defensively for St. Thomas, the veteran Lanaya Leone had a sack, and then Alex Harris had a tackle for loss. Moving on to Friday, April 3rd now, we had a couple of blowouts here, so we're going to quickly go through the stats. Chihiro Awada here in the Kansas Wesleyan game versus Bethel. They won that one 46-0. Awada went 18 for 23, 225 yards, and 5 passing touchdowns with no turnovers. Tomoyo Yagi also had a passing touchdown. Ava DeSasare also had a rushing touchdown here to add that. And for receivers, Aaliyah Wood with 4 receptions for 59 yards. Tomoyo Yagi had a receiving touchdown. So did Laura Hernandez Sanchez. She actually had 2 receiving touchdowns. But outside of that, Yui Watanabe and Zoe Lucas and Aaliyah Young all caught the other receiving touchdowns here. And it is worth noting that 15 different Coyotes from Kansas Wesleyan had at least 1 reception in that game. I don't think I've ever seen that before, to be quite honest. But let's look at the defensive stats here. It looks like Ans Diane Rabano had an interception, Kylie Marshall had an interception, and Tomoyo Yagi with 2 interceptions on defense. Number 15 Life blew Bruton Parker completely out of the water by a score of 45-0. Cheyenne Brooks went 19 for 30 for 305 yards, 6 passing touchdowns, and 1 interception. As far as receivers go for Life, Alora Niederprum had 4 receptions for 98 yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. And of course, Altier Gooch here, big game for her, 6 receptions, which led the team, 84 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. And Latoya Mitchell also had a receiving touchdown for Life. On defense here for the Soaring Eagles, Umi Gay, sorry if I mispronounced that there, had 1 interception. And also, it looks like Kennedy Ryan had a sack. In a matchup between 2 top 10 squads, number 2 Kaiser came out and dominated number 7 St. Thomas 40-2. This was a fantastic game here from Ava Wallace. She went 31 for 38 for 327 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and no turnovers. And then you had Adrienne Rivera. She had a rushing touchdown, and so did Janasia Wilson. For receivers, Dakota Moberg led the way again here for the Seahawks. She had 7 receptions for 114 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. Tremisha Harris had a big game as well with 8 receptions for 93 yards and a touchdown. And then Ashley Clam also had a receiving touchdown in this one. Defensively for Kaiser, Sarah Villarreal had 2 interceptions, and Ashley Clam added 1 as well. Kylie Caetano had 2.5 sacks, and then Hannah Jays had half a sack. Dakota Moberg led the way with 10 total flagpoles as well. Looking at St. Thomas on offense, they just really struggled to get the ball moving. Sharice Newton only had 97 total passing yards on 19 attempts, and then Leah Cruz on 19 attempts had 77 pass yards and 3 turnovers. We're going to keep things rolling now and move on to where number 1 Warner absolutely smacked down on Florida Memorial 73-0. Let's take a super quick look at these stats. Catherine Hutchinson, 361 passing yards, 10 passing touchdowns, and 1 interception. I mean, what can you really say at this point? It's just ridiculous, the stats they're putting up. And then we had 4 different receivers with multiple receiving touchdowns. Jessica Finley had 10 receptions for 114 yards, 2 touchdowns. Anna Vincenzini also with 2 receiving touchdowns. Avalon Lux Offerman with 3 receiving touchdowns. And finally, Maggie Lauber with 2 receiving touchdowns. On defense for Warner, Adriana Williams with 4 sacks, Maggie Lauber with 3 sacks, Anna Vincenzini with an interception, Nicolette DeSimone with an interception, and finally here, Mariah Gordon, 5 interceptions against Florida Memorial. I mean, just absolutely ridiculous numbers. There's like 10 different stat lines on this team alone in this game that we can pick out. But unbelievable game here and win for the Warner Royals. Next up here, we had St. Mary take down Bethel by a score of 35-6. Offensively for St. Mary, Keandra Thomas went 7 for 24 for 85 passing yards with 1 passing touchdown and 1 interception. But she went ahead and added 185 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns on 11 attempts. Unbelievable job there. Defensively for St. Mary, you had Eli Miranda with 9 flagpoles, 3 tackles for loss, and a sack. You also had Ava Lavilla, sorry if I mispronounced that there, with 2 interceptions. Looking at Bethel, they actually had CJ Bundy with 80 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown here. In our third to last game in Week 8 for the NAIA division, we had Cumberland absolutely smack down Mars Hill by a score of 55-6. Madison Woodard balled out to say the least. She went 26 for 34, 383 passing yards, and 7 passing touchdowns. She also added a rushing touchdown to make it 8 total on the game. For receivers, Caliana Griggs with 6 receptions, 105 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. Jalea Cole also had 2 receiving touchdowns. And then Marley Hyde with 6 receptions, 107 yards, 1 touchdown. And Trinity Ryan with 66 receiving yards and a receiving touchdown. For Cumberland, Talon McCausland had an interception. Sorry if I mispronounced that there. And Candence Dedrick and Kira Johnson all had an interception as well. And on top of that, Zora Neal added 2 sacks. Next here, number 5 Ottawa took down William Woods by a score of 47-0. Anna Anderson went 29 for 36 for 305 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and an interception. Jada Barron also threw a 19-yard passing touchdown here. For receivers, Tatiana Dos Santos led the way with 9 receptions for 90 yards and a touchdown. Olga Sotillo had 2 receiving touchdowns, and so did Marley Spielberg. On defense for Ottawa, Suzanne Kaufman with a big game. 10 total flag pulls, 1 sack there. Now looking at William Woods, their QB, Shemaiah Williams, went 27 for 41 for 120 yards, 0 touchdowns, and an interception. The leading receiver was Addie Chillick with 10 receptions for 45 yards. Defensively for William Woods, Addie Chillick also led the way with 6 total flag pulls, and Sam Menard had an interception. In the final game that we're going to be highlighting here from the NAIA division, number 21 Thomas wins 46-6 over Reinhardt. Destiny Locken went 13 for 19 for 214 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Cam King went 7 for 10 for 83 yards and a passing touchdown as well. Destiny Lockett went ahead and also added 75 rush yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. Her leading receivers were going to be Azariah Greer, 6 receptions, 97 yards, 1 touchdown, and then Diva Jones and Amiri Logan both had 2 receiving touchdowns apiece. Defensively, it looks like we had Destiny Lockett and Uliesi Hodgson lead the way with 9 flag pulls, and Diva Jones added a sack and an interception. That is going to wrap things up here in this recap for Week 8 in the 2026 Women's College Flag Football season for the NAIA division. This is Gino with the Playmaker's Corner podcast, and thank you so much for listening.
All right, Coach V here, and I got your D1, D2 recap for Week 8 here. We got games all the way from March 30th, Monday, to, I think it ends on Saturday. Those were the last games. Yes, they do. So from Monday, March 30th to April 4th, Saturday. We got a couple games here. Not as many as before, a handful of games, but still some decent ones. I will say this, I will be recapping Barton College versus Lees-McRae on the segment after this, so make sure you check that one out here after this. It was a great game. So without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the other ones that happened in Week 8, though. Starting on April 30th, Monday, we have Long Island University playing Montclair State, and they would fall to them 31-0. Julia Dank, 6 of 16, 59 yards, 4 interceptions. Harper Ski also got in there. Only completed a pass, though, but had an interception thrown as well. Their lead receiver was Elise Learsey with 2 receptions for 36 yards. Second leading receiver was Sophia Song Virtrum, or Virtrum, I want to say. Excuse me if I'm saying that wrong, but she had 3 receptions for 19 yards here. On defense, Manny Boyd was their lead flag puller with 10 and a sack, and then Julia Dank also had an interception as they fall to Montclair. Moving on here a couple days, let's go to Wednesday, April 1st. Mount Olive plays Hollins twice here, which is kind of interesting, and they would beat them both times. The first time was 18-0, a big first half for Mount Olive there to go ahead and pretty much give them the lead. Just looking at the stats they have for this game, Sandra Funderburk, 23 passing yards. She also had 28 rushing yards. She also had Maya George with 25 rushing yards. Olivia Conticello also had a rushing touchdown in this one. Receiving-wise, Maya George led with 3 receptions for 18 yards here. And then you did have 2 big interceptions by Krishia McCoy, who had 2 interceptions, which I believe both have to be pick sixes. So that's your playmaker of the game right there here as she goes ahead and makes those happen. Zamara Rawls was your lead flag puller with 5 as well, as Mount Olive gets the win. Hollins In this first game, Ariana Tyree, 2 interceptions, though only 5 passing yards here. Really nothing going on offense. I want to say, they only had 4 yards of offense as they were just struggling here. Evan Lemus, I think it's Ariga, I want to say, had 4 flagpoles. And then that's pretty much it. No sacks, no turnovers here in that second game, which I kind of feel like this might have been a whole game here, and it was cut for some reason into a first game and second game, but, it wouldn't have mattered. Matt Olive would score here. Chrisia McCoy would throw that touchdown to Jacayla Marshall for them to score as they go ahead and beat Holland. So there you go. Like I said, I don't know what's going on with that, but Mount Olive gets 2 dubs. Roberts Wesleyan, they go ahead and they play Damon University here. And Roberts Wesleyan will go ahead and also stay undefeated after that win to Damon University, winning a big one, 52-0. I don't think there are any stats from that one, or box scores, I should say. But Sarah Seyfried did get 2 touchdown catches. Aaliyah McCoy added on 4 touchdown runs as well as they go ahead and beat Damon. So just wanted to go ahead and put that out there. And obviously Amy Turner at quarterback throwing those. Defensively, they played well. Laura Granada had an interception. Kate Rayburn had an interception here. 12 players recorded flagpoles, with Granada leading the way with 9 and an interception. Neve Tilley had 8 flagpoles and a breakup, and then Deborah Catalino had 4 flagpoles and a breakup here. So there you go, just a couple names to throw out there. As Roberts Wesleyan currently 7-0 going on here, about midway through their season, I believe. So there you go. Moving on to Thursday, the 2nd, Ferrum would go ahead and play North Carolina Central, and no stats from this one, but they would beat them pretty easily, 34-6. Long Island would then play St. Joseph's, New York, Long Island. I don't know. And they would lose to them 33-0. No score or box scores from that one. And then that would be it for Thursday. On Friday, the 3rd here, Ferrum would go ahead and play Gallaudet. A little bit of some cross-conference play here. Gallaudet undefeated and United East play. Ferrum battling here in the Conference Carolinas. And Ferrum would go ahead and get a big win, 13-12 over Gallaudet. They would score 13 in the first half here, holding Gallaudet to 0. Gallaudet would kind of come back here, but would not be able to get a PAT. And so unfortunately, that would be their undoing, as they would lose 13-12. But for Ferrum, Payson Shreve, 248 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Macy Taylor had a great game. I would say your playmaker of the game here. She had 16 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown. Also their lead receiver, 10 receptions, 123 yards, and a receiving touchdown for them. Second leading receiver was Brianna Kimmins, 4 for 64. Samantha Pitzer, 5 for 28. And then you also had Jalen Hires, 9 for 24. Those are your lead receivers for Ferrum. Defensively, Gracious Wise had herself a game, 5 sacks in this one. Dana Lynn Bonilla, 2 interceptions. Anastasia Rogers, an interception. Samantha Pitzer, an interception here. Wise led in flagpoles with 8 for Ferrum, as this defense played out of their mind here. And luckily, the offense was able to return the favor 1 or 2 times early on. So there you go. Ferrum gets a big non-conference win here over Gallaudet, 13-12, and that's a quality team to beat. Moving on here, Mercyhurst would go ahead and play Penn West California. I think they would play them twice here, and both were, relatively close games here, but Mercyhurst would win both times, 19-6 and 20-12. Just looking over some of the stats from the 19-6 game here. Ellie Shao, 147 yards, 2 touchdowns, 25 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown, as I would say she was your playmaker of the game in that first one. Receiving-wise, Isabella, I think it's Iaquinta, 5 receptions, 35 yards, and a touchdown. Cameron Mulally, 6 for 32, and then I think it's Goddess Santos, 3 for 30 and a touchdown. You also had Joanna Saeed here with 4 for 27, and Maria Osagi Reese for 3 for 26. Defensively, You had Alexis Summers and Kira Virginia leading with 4 flagpoles each. Milana Starostina also had 2 sacks here. Lauren Ayanetta had an interception, and then Cameron Mulally here had a sack and an interception as Mercyhurst wins big. For Penn West California here, Alana Eberhardt, 7 of 24, 101 passing yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, also sacked 3 times. Just not a super sharp game here. And then receiving wise, Chrislyn Jones, 131-yard receiving touchdown, but that is pretty much it for them. Defensively for Penn West here, Emily, I think it's Beloity, I want to say, 10 flagpoles here, and then you had Noelle Haas with a sack, but not too much going for them in that first game. In the second game, closer for sure. Mercyhurst would score in the fourth quarter to go ahead and pull ahead to make it 20-12. Let's look at the stats for them. Ellie Shaw, 128 yards, 17 rushing yards, and a touchdown. Did throw a pick, though, as well. Maria Osagi Iris, I want to say, had a rushing touchdown. Isabella Ayaquinta, 4 receptions, 49 yards, and a touchdown. Joanna Saeed, 4 for 40. And then Cameron Mulally, 3 for 19. Defensively, Katherine Johnson led with 9 flagpoles and a sack. Gata Santos with 2 interceptions. And Isabella LaQuinta here with an interception as well, as they won in this one. And then, like I said, better for Penn West here. Alana Eberhardt, 135 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. Mitchell Turner had a rushing touchdown and 52 yards. Eberhardt adding on another 29 here. And then you had Kamaya Williams, 9 receptions, 110 yards, and a touchdown as they go ahead. And they pulled closer, but offensively just could not get it done here. Defensively, Bethany Conant led with 10 flagpoles and an interception. You also had sacks from Noelle Haas and Maddie Fisher, but not enough as they fall to Mercyhurst by a score. So there you go there. Let's go ahead and move on to Saturday, where we have the bulk of our games here. A lot of Conference Carolinas play, starting with King. They will go ahead and face off with Barton here, and they would lose a tough one, 63-13. Sawyer Rigdon with a day, 378 yards, 8 touchdowns, 1 pick here, as I would probably say that she's up there for Playmaker of the game. Looking at these other stats, though, also 31 rushing yards. But looking at these other stats, Valerie Anjbada, 10 receptions, 131 yards, 2 touchdowns. Sarah Merritt, 10 receptions, 98 yards, 4 touchdowns. Deja Reed, 5 for 90 and a touchdown. Zania Long, 5 for 45. And then Ailani Bassa, 113-yard receiving touchdown. Defensively played well as well. Mariah White, 12 flagpoles and a sack here. You have Lila Nathanson, I want to say, with an interception. Zania Long with 2 interceptions. Valerie Anjbada with an interception. And Alyssa Taylor with a long 60-yard interception, which probably has to be a pick, if I'm being honest with you. And actually, I would say Playmaker of the game would definitely be Sawyer Rigdon. Spread out the ball well, finding 4 different receivers, and played very efficiently against this King defense. For King, though, the struggles continue. Samantha Lee, a decent game, passing yards wise, 244 yards, 1 touchdown, but 5 picks is not great. Had 32 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown as well. Receiving wise, Alyssa Ramos once again leads with 9 receptions, 484 yards. Jade Salvador right behind her, though, 9 for 72 and a touchdown. Haley Mascalo, 7 for 50, and Chastity Mandely here, 4 for 25. Defensively for King, it was Anissa Davidson who led with 10 flagpoles, and then you had Alyssa Ramos with a interception as well. But that is pretty much it, as once again Barton wins over King 63-13. Moving on, Mount St. Mary's, the Mount, plays Chowan, and they would go ahead and succeed, winning kind of a close one here, but still winning 47-32 over Chowan. And Chowan would actually score 19 in the fourth to make this one closer. But Mount St. Mary's was already in the lead here. Looking at the stats, Annabelle Hott, 268 yards, 5 touchdowns, 3 picks, but also had 24 rushing yards. Alyssa Lane adds another 59 rushing yards here. Receiving-wise, Jordan Dodson-Jensen, 4 receptions, 105 yards, 3 touchdowns. Ariane Stokes, 4 for 97 and a touchdown. Alyssa Lane, 6 for 63 and a touchdown. Their lead flag puller was Madison Keene with 17 flag pulls, a sack, and 2 interceptions. Annabelle Hott also had 2 interceptions as well and 4 flag pulls. And then Jordan Dodson-Jensen also had a sack. I think playmaker of the game probably has to be Annabelle Hott. 268 yards, did throw 3 picks, but had 5 touchdowns and also caught 2 picks on defense. So there you go. So I will go ahead and call her playmaker of the game. For Cho in here, Nevaeh Higdon, 311 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 picks, also 25 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Kiara Aguelo here, 8 receptions, 95 yards as their lead receiver. Janiyah Perry, 5'4", 65. Zion Haliger here, 6'4", 62 and a touchdown. And Maya James, 1'4", 51 and a touchdown. Higdon co-led in flag poles with Haliger there. And Higdon also had an interception. He also had interceptions from Janiyah Perry and Kiara Aguelo, but not enough as Mount St. Mary's goes ahead and beats Chowan 47-32. In addition, Chowan would go ahead and play Wingate here, and Wingate would win 99-0. I think this is how you say it, but Haley Bui, or it's Bowie, I don't know. I apologize, but she got some time here at quarterback. 21 of 24, 267 yards, 7 touchdowns. You still have Janelle Francis, though, 11 of 14, 133 yards and 4 touchdowns, also 21 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. Maddie Jones back in here, 10 yards here for a rushing touchdown. But it was Addison Cadwell who led and is probably your playmaker of the game. 10 receptions, 164 yards, 7 touchdowns in this one. That has to be a school record for them. As they go ahead and beat Cho in here. You also had Von Brusso with 8 for 78 and a touchdown. Kaylee Montalvo, 5 for 44 and a touchdown. Bowie, 2 for 42 and a touchdown. And then Kylie Watt also caught a touchdown here as well. Defensively, Alana Placide led with 11 flagpoles and 2 sacks. Russo also added on another 2 sacks here and an interception here. Hathaway with an interception. Janelle Francis with an interception. Montalvo with 3 interceptions as both sides of the ball were playing at a high level. For Chowan, Nevaeh Higdon, 127 yards, 6 interceptions, 33 rushing yards as their lead passer and rusher. Janiyah Perry was their lead receiver, 13 for 88, but really nothing going for them on offense there. Defensively, Higdon led with 8 flagpoles here. Dusabe Uera had a sack as well, but not enough as Wingate beats them 99-0. Mars Hill would then go ahead and play NAIA Cumberland, and they would lose once again, 55-6. A tough go for them. Cecilia Hale, 10 for 28, 103 yards, a touchdown, 3 picks. Also 26 rushing yards as their leading passer and rusher. Saga Carlson Roa, 3 for 55 and a touchdown. Marilu Suni, 5 for 24. Really not too much going on there. Then Amani Sardam, 2 for 14. But like I said, not too much production on offense. Defensively, Hale led with 10 flagpoles here. Zuri Velasquez had a sack, but just not really enough to beat Cumberland. Hartwick would then, this is maybe one of the only non-conference Carolinas games that went on this Saturday, and it is. But Hartwick would go ahead and play DeUville, and Hartwick would win 33-18 here. Audra Dahl, 13 passing yards and a touchdown, but a lot of damage done on the ground. 113 rushing yards and a touchdown. Anna Stanovich, 77 and 2 touchdowns. Heaven Levere, 43 rushing yards. Zoe Sullivan, 28. Bailey McCoy, 19. Kendra Charland, 18 yards and a touchdown as well. Charland also catching a 13-yard receiving touchdown as the offense did a lot of damage by running the ball. Defensively, Stanovich led with 17 flagpoles and 3 pass breakups. You also had Zion Harrison with a sack and an interception as Hartwick takes care of DeUville. For DeUville, though, Paige Robinson, 155 yards and a pick. She also had 116 yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. And then Alexis Brua had 8 receptions and 108 yards as the receiving leader. But nothing else really going on the offensive side of the ball. Brua led with 10 flagpoles, and that's pretty much it, as Hartwick goes ahead and takes care of DeUville 33-18. Moving on back to Conference Carolina play here, Mount Olive would go ahead and play Lees-McRae, and they would lose to them unfortunately. 60-0. Lees-McRae with a big game. Mackenzie Hicks, 271 passing yards, 7 passing touchdowns. Also a rushing touchdown in that one. Ava Rivera, 59 yards and a touchdown as well. Tammy Chatwood led with 32 rushing yards. And then receiving-wise, Natalia Hernandez de Leon, 7 for 143 yards and 3 touchdowns. Kennedy Van Noy, 5 for 93 and 3 touchdowns. And Ashley Alvarado, 5 for 49 and a touchdown. You also had Ava Rivera with another short touchdown. Mackenzie Hicks is your playmaker of the game of that one. Defensively, though, they also played well. Mackenzie Walker led with 5 flagpoles. Alvarado with an interception. Kamora Brown with an interception as well, as they go ahead and take care of business on both sides of the ball. For Mount Olive, Jayliani Lucas led with 108 passing yards and 2 picks here. Receiving-wise, it was Christian McCoy, 5 for 43, but really not much more going for them. Defensively for them, Brianna Barbie co-led with 4 flagpoles with Olivia Conticello, but that is pretty much it. Maya George had a sack. Kalia Brown had a sack, but Lees-McRae takes care of business and rolls on. King, they would go ahead and play Mount Olive here in a close one, and King would go ahead and get another win, 34-25 over them. Samantha Lee, 271 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 picks, also 75 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. Chastity Manderly, 34 rushing yards as well. Receiving-wise, Faith Carter with a big game and your playmaker of the game. 7 receptions, 79 yards and 3 touchdowns. Alyssa Ramos, 10 for 76 yards. And then Molly Turner, 3 for 35 and a touchdown. Defensively, Nigel Arnold, 3 sacks, and then Molly Turner had an interception, and Alyssa Ramos adds on another 2 interceptions in this win versus Mount Olive. For Mount Olive, Jayliani Lucas, 222 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 pick. Christian McCoy also threw a touchdown. Lucas had 84 yards and 2 touchdowns here. But just really not enough here. Receiving-wise, her lead receiver was Evelise Martinez. 8 receptions, 133 yards, and a touchdown. Brianna Barbie also caught a touchdown. But like I said, just not enough offensively. Defensively, Christian McCoy, 12 flagpoles and an interception. Aaliyah Cox had an interception. Jaquela Marshall had an interception. And then Kalia Brown had a sack, But like I said, just not quite enough. Not bad on defense, but definitely needing more from the offense there as King beats Mount Olive 35-24. Wingate would then go ahead and play Mount St. Mary's here, and they would win big once again, having a big weekend. 58-12. Haley Bowie was 10 of 20 for 148 yards and 2 touchdowns on 20 attempts. Janelle Francis, 16 of 26, 111 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Interesting that they are splitting time, it looks like, at quarterback. It could just be the opponents as well, but something to keep an eye on. Rushing-wise, Kaylee Montavo, 58 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Francis, 50 yards and 2 touchdowns. Haley Bowie here, 40 yards and a touchdown as well. And then receiving-wise, Yvonne Brussel, 7 receptions, 76 yards. Addison Cadwell, 3 for 52 and 2 touchdowns. And Haley Bowie here, 5 for 45 here. And then it looks like Janelle Francis also caught a touchdown in this one. Defensively, Placide had 7 flagpoles, but no sacks or interceptions from Wingate. For Mount St. Mary's here, Annabelle Hott, who looks to be the starting quarterback for now, 16 of 34, 145 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick, 30 rushing yards here. Ariane Stokes was the lead receiver, 71 yards on 4 receptions and a touchdown. Jordan Dodson-Jensen, 5 for 49 and a touchdown for them. And then defensively, Madison Keene once again led in flagpoles with 10. And then Annabelle Hott had an interception, but just not enough here as they fall to Wingate. And for Wingate, I would probably say playmaker of the game is Janelle Francis here. Caught 1, threw 2, ran into. So there you go. They go ahead and beat the Mount here 58-12. And then you have Mars Hill. They play Hendricks in a very close game and would lose a very close game 6-0. Cecilia Hale, 71 yards, 2 picks here. Also 27 rushing yards. Receiving wise, 5 for 39 for Mary Lou Suni. And Isabella Gray, 2 for 27. As the offense just could not really find a rhythm here. Defensively, Mary Lou Suni had 7 flagpoles as she was the leader for them as they fall in a tough one to Hendricks 6-0. All right, we got a good one right here. We got Lees-McRae hosting Barton College here in Banner Elk, North Carolina. Tate Field. This is a big one here. The Conference Carolinas, it is very tight near the top here with Lees-McRae, Ferrum, and Wingate all battling against each other. You also have other teams like Emmanuel who are just outside. And so every conference win matters as we approach the conference tournament here in a couple weeks. And so this was a good one and a big game for both teams. Let's go ahead and hop right into it. To start the game, Barton College and Sawyer Rigdon would start with the ball. Rigdon at quarterback gets the snap, rolls right, and scrambles for, I want to say, a single yard here. So that brings up 2nd and 5. Second down here, Rigdon with the snap, throws an ill-advised pass over the middle, just does not see Sydney Stigler here, the linebacker, who not only picks us off, but she takes it to the house to go ahead and put up Lees-McRae 6-0. Like I said, just does not see Stigler at all. She's right in front of her, so I'm not quite sure what happened here. On the PAT, the pass is broken up, but Lees-McRae has the early lead. 14:21 left here, still early in the game. Rigdon trying to get that one back, goes ahead and scrambles left to get the first down, making it 1st and 19. Following that, Rigdon finds Sarah Merritt over the middle on a spot route, but illegal contact from the rusher will go ahead and add some yards there to make it 1st and 6, approaching midfield. Repeat of 1st down here. Rigdon throws the flat to Merritt, who cuts it upfield, slides past a defender to go ahead and get the 1st down. Following a drop on 2nd down here, Rigdon with some time here throws it late to Valerie Angebada on the toe tap to make it 3rd and 10. She then throws it right here to Zania Long here for it looks like a 1-yard gain. And then on 3rd and 9 here, Rigdon rips it deep down the left sideline on an absolute dot to Zania Long here, who is just a step short of scoring, just steps out of bounds here, but this was a great throw down the left sideline here, and then a great catch as well. And so here we go, Barton looking to tie this thing up. Red zone 1st and 1. Rigdon throws a drag, but it's deflected. After a drop on 2nd down, on 3rd down, they go ahead and run a sweep left to Valerie Angebada, who bumps past the defender to make it 6-6. On the PAT, Rigdon rips it over the middle, but it is contested, and so that's a tough ball. It's not brought in and dropped, so it stays tied. 10-11 left here in the game. Lees-McRae with the ball. Mackenzie Hicks in at quarterback. Before they could run anything, there's encroachment on the Barton defense after the hard count, so it's 1st and 1. On this first play here, Hicks decides to take it herself to go ahead and pick up the 1st down to make it 1st and 17. She then throws a hitch route right to Kennedy Van Noy, who goes ahead and gets a couple more yards. Following that, on 2nd down, Hicks sidesteps a rusher, resets, launches deep over the middle on a post route to Ashley Alvarado, who brings it in to make it 1st and 5 past midfield. A big splash play right here to flip the field for Lees-McRae. After an incompletion on 1st down, 2nd down here, they direct snap it to Tammy Chatwood, who is the running back, I believe. And she goes ahead, takes the snap here, speeds up the right sideline, and is gone to the house to make it 12-6 as Lees-McRae on fire to start this game. 7:54 left here. Barton not going to go away, though, looking to make something happen. Rigdon goes ahead and, with time, throws the drag route here to I think it's Deja Reed to go ahead and get a couple yards here, about 2. 2nd and 4 here, Rigdon throws it over the middle to Reed again, who gives them a 1st down now, 1st and 16. Rigdon goes back to Reed a 3rd time on the drag route for another 3 yards. And so now that brings up 2nd and 13 as they approach midfield. On 2nd down here, Rigdon with the snap just gets caught staring down her receiver, and once again doesn't see Mackenzie Walker over the middle as she throws it, and Mackenzie Walker just easily picks this one off here for another Lees-McRae pick, and she gets a decent return here as it's 1st and 19 in the red zone for Lees-McRae after the interception. Looking to score after this turnover again here. They go ahead and call a direct snap to Chatwood, who makes a couple players miss, but they are eventually able to corral her, only going for 4 yards here. And so now that brings up 2nd and 15. Hicks with the snap, goes deep down the left sideline and finds a diving Natalia Hernandez de Leon, who makes a sensational catch to make it 18-6 here. Just a great throw by Hicks, just letting this one go and letting her longtime teammate, second-year teammate, Natalia Hernandez de Leon, go make an excellent play here, and that's why she's the best wide receiver in the country candidate to make it 18-6. Now the PAT is broken up here, so it stays right here, but Lees-McRae gets what they want, and that is a 2-score lead and the score after their second turnover. Barton with 5:15 left here, trying to climb back into this down 2 scores. They go ahead and start with the drag route to Bada for 2. Rigdon then comes back over the middle to Reed after going through her progressions pretty well here to make it 1st and 16, approaching midfield. First down here, Rigdon finds Bada on the curl, who slips a defender and is able to make it 2nd and 8. Second down here, Rigdon running out of options with time after she gets a snap, decides to take off, splitting the defenders, and gets about 6 yards. 3rd and 2 here, really close to midfield. Rigdon with the snap. She goes deep down the left sideline on the stop and go, and it's Long who breaks free and brings it in with the step on the defender. Wide open on this one to go ahead and make it 12-18. Good anticipation by Rigdon and just a great route by Zania Long here to go ahead and pull them within a score. And that happened with 3 minutes left here. And so on the PAT, they decide to go for 2 here. Rigdon throws an absolute dot to Abada in the right back corner of the end zone to make it 14-18. Lees-McRae with 3 minutes left here. I believe they have scored on every drive so far early in this game, as this one is looking like a shootout. Hicks goes ahead and finds Natalia Hernandez de Leon on the quick hitch, who accelerates forward for a nice gain to make it 1st and 16, approaching midfield. Following that, Hicks on the next play checks it down to Jalea Lampton to make it 2nd and 8. Second down here, Hicks goes ahead and rips one over the top on the go to Eva Rivera on the seam, and she brings it in to make it 1st and 4 past midfield. Hicks on fire here, and the receivers on fire as well to start this first quarter. Following that play, Hicks with the snap rips another accurate throw, this time on a post route to her right to Kennedy Van Noy, who pumps the brakes on the one defender, letting her fly by before walking it in to making it 24-14, as this Lees-McRae offense is looking really good to start this game. PAT, though, is unfortunately dropped here, as I guess I just went ahead and jinxed them, but they're still up by 10. 1:11 left here for Barton, as they are finding themselves in a shootout and finding that they need a score on every drive. This is what happens right here. Rigdon throws the comeback to Sarah Merritt, who goes ahead and makes it a 1st and 17 approaching midfield. Following that, Rigdon rips this ball on a post to Bada, who catches it in stride and burns downfield, almost scoring, but getting caught from behind to make it 1st and 1 in the red zone. Great throw by Rigdon and another great play by Bada to go ahead and get them set up here. So here we go. Second quarter, 1st and 1 in the red zone, looking to cut into this lead. Rigdon with the snap rolls left before checking it down to Merritt, who walks it in to make it 24-20. On the PAT, Rigdon finds Bada on the drag, and that makes it 24-21. We officially have a shootout. And so here we go, 14:52 left here. Lees-McRae looking to score again here. Hicks rolling right, finds Vanoy near the right sideline for a nice gain downfield. It's now 1st and 7 approaching midfield. Following that, Hicks throws the flat route here to Rivera, who gets a couple more yards, but not quite the first down. On second, Hicks checks it down to Lampton again. She is stopped once more short. It's now 3rd and inches. On third down, Hicks throws a beauty of a comeback route, slash curl route, I think, to Van Noy, who brings it in, but is ruled out here. It was on the far sideline, so I couldn't quite see if she got a foot in or if that was the right call, but it looked real close to me. So now it's 4th down here. And on 4th, it doesn't matter. Hicks scrambles left, gets across the midfield. She makes it 1st and 17. Following that play, Hicks fires right again to Van Noy on the curl. She makes a low catcher. That goes for 11. Then on 2nd and 6 here, Hicks kind of hesitates trying to fire to a check down, but luckily the pick is dropped here as the hesitation almost resulted in a catastrophic, maybe not catastrophic, but a pretty bad mistake here. So luckily that is dropped. So that brings up 3rd down though regardless. They also get hit with a penalty as well, so it started 17 actually. And on 3rd and long, Hicks maneuvers right before throwing over the middle, but it is knocked away. Kind of another dangerous throw here. So now it's 4th down here, and they're going to go for it. On 4th down, Hicks fires over the middle on the money, but this one is dropped. And it looks like it's been raining. It's been slightly raining, I want to say. I couldn't quite see it with the stream beforehand, but right here, the way that ball kind of slipped out, it looks like it was a little wet there. So it's a turnover on downs, and that is also something to keep in mind as these two teams have been going back and forth. 10:18 left here. Barton looking to take the lead here. 1st and 2. Rigdon finds Bada on the drag, but the defender tries to undercut this one and just misses as Bada gets free down the right sideline and goes ahead and makes it 27-24 as they take the lead for the first time today. PT is incomplete here, but it looks like it is Barton's turn to take a swing as Lees-McRae is now down for the first time today. Still a lot of time, still 9:49 left in the 2nd quarter here. Just a lot of fireworks early on here. And that's when Lees-McRae takes over. Mackenzie Hicks finds Rivera on the motion, who gets a snap and dumps it off to Latham to make it 2nd and 1. 2nd down here, Hicks with the snap. Here goes ahead and lets this one fly down the left sideline to Natalia Hernandez de Leon, who brings it in, making a great adjustment to catch a tough ball and basically flipping the field here. It's now 1st and 10 past midfield. 1st down here, Hicks spins out of pole and then sidearms this one to Chatwood on the check down, who goes ahead and makes it 2nd and 4. 2nd down here, Hicks looking to be in her bag, goes ahead and throws a tough post route as it is caught by Hernandez de Leon on this one, making a tough catch through contact to go ahead and make it 1st and 12 in the red zone. 1st down here, Hicks takes off right, has an opening, spins it, and walks in to give Lees-McRae the lead again as she goes ahead and picks up a nice rushing touchdown. On the PAT here, Hicks throws it over the middle, and it is picked off here, but that's okay. It is pulled. She's pulled down, so they keep the 3-point lead, 30-27 for now. Now for Barton, there's about 7:16 left. They are marching down the field to get a 1st down thanks to Rigdon finding Bada on an out route. But eventually gets to 4th and 6 here. 4th down, Rigdon moves off her first read and is kind of just forced to throw over the middle because of this pressure. And she's picked off by Ashley Alvarado, who makes the diving interception here. But like I said, it was 4th down already. But Lees-McRae goes ahead and takes over the 4:18 left. It's 1st and 17 past midfield. Let's go ahead and fast forward a couple plays here. 4th and 2. Hicks with the tight window throws it to Natalia Hernandez de Leon on the slant, who makes another tough catch through contact to make it 1st and 18 in the red zone. On 1st down, Hicks throws it up the seam, but it's knocked away. 2nd down is a direct snap to Chatwood, who fakes the reverse before going up the right sideline, gets a nice gain to make it 3rd and 4. 3rd down here, Hicks rolls right, tries to throw across her body over the middle, but this one is jumped and almost picked off. Could have been a big play for Barton. And this one I don't think was going to be completed no matter what for Lees-McRae, but they just barely get past that one to set up a 4th down here with about 1:22. But there is a false start on Lees-McRae before the snap, so it's actually 4th and 7, still with 1:22. On 4th down here, Hicks throws it to Chatwood on the drag route, but it's a little too high, and she's not able to bring it in as it is eventually dropped. And so this would be a turnover on downs. Barton would try to get something going here, and they would actually get into the red zone, but would not be able to punch in a score. And so at half, it would stay a Lees-McRae lead, 30-27 in a very high-scoring game to start. Now, going into the 3rd quarter, Lees-McRae would start with the football. And by the way, the sun also coming out as it looks a little bit drier out there. On first down here, Hicks throws right to the flats to Alvarado, who goes ahead and gets 5. Following that, Hicks just scrambles for the first down and some to make it 1st and 10 approaching midfield. On 1st and 10 here, Hicks throws a tight pass on the post of Van Noy, who catches it between two defenders and is gone to the house to make it 36-27. A sensational play by Kennedy Van Noy to go ahead and just rip this one off. And then just another great throw by Hicks, who is on one today. Now on the PAT, it is kind of tipped up here, unfortunately, at the line, it looks like, so it is no good, but they have a 2-score lead. Now, Barton looking to put something together. Let's go ahead and fast forward. It's 4th down and 1 past midfield. On 3rd down, there's a drop here. They are looking to get this one here as they are on the edge of making the red zone. And here's what happens. Rigdon throws to Bada on the crosser, and she brings it in. On top of that, gets a penalty that is thrown on Lees-McRae. And so Barton has a 1st and 5 now in the red zone. They got to cut into this lead, and they look like they are on track so far. But on 1st down, unfortunately, it happens. It's a drop. On 2nd down, Rigdon takes off right and is stopped for, it looks like maybe a loss, but there is a penalty, so it stays at 2nd and 7. And on 2nd down, Rigdon goes ahead and finds Bada for about 2 yards, bringing up 3rd and 5. And then after that, Rigdon throws another short pass here on a drag route. Couldn't see who it was, but she does not score. So it's now 4th down and 3. On 4th and 3, really needing a score here, Rigdon gets a snap under pressure, tries to throw it to her check down, but it is dropped. This is a tough turnover on downs as Lees-McRae takes over with about 7 minutes left in the 3rd quarter. And they will get a decent drive here, but would stall out near midfield and would punt it. And so Barton would end up getting the ball back with about 2:52 left, only down 2 scores, so still plenty of time. But you need a score sooner than later. So here's what happens. 1st and 17, Rigdon goes left, throwing a risky pass over the middle to Aolani Bassa, who brings it in and makes it 2nd and 9. Following that, Rigdon finds Merritt on the hitch, who splits the defenders for a short gain of 4. Then on 3rd and 5, Rigdon under pressure is forced to throw this one away. So now it's 4th down here. Barton really needing something here to keep this drive alive. 4th and 5, Rigdon with the snap. Overthrows yet another pass here, unfortunately, on the slant. And so that would be a turnover on downs. Lees-McRae then has the ball with the 1st and 15 approaching midfield. Here's how that goes. A couple plays in, Hicks finds Van Noy on another post route, who almost takes this one to the house, but is stopped short here of scoring. So now it's 1st and 3 in the red zone here. A couple plays after that, it's now, I want to say 3rd and 3 in the red zone. Hicks eventually finds Ashley Alvarado on the slant route, who brings it in to make it 42-27 as Lees-McRae takes, I believe, their biggest lead of the day here. Following that, on the PAT, Hicks finds Rivera left on the drag to make it 43-27 as they keep that commanding lead. 11 minutes left here. Barton just running out of time. It's the top of the 4th quarter, by the way, as Lees-McRae just scored at the top of the 4th. Here's what happens. Rigdon throws late to long to make it 1st and 19 approaching midfield. After a breakup by Alvarado on 2nd down, on 3rd down, Rigdon throws the out route to Merritt, who reverses fields and turns it up for a decent gain while also getting a holding penalty called on Lees-McRae. So now it's 1st and 5 past midfield. An incompletion on 1st, that brings up 2nd here. Rigdon drops back, scanning, decides to scramble, and gets a good gain, but there is a flag thrown as, it was a little bit of a physical pull, a bump there by Rigdon as well, and a penalty is thrown here as the refs try to go ahead and get control as tensions rise. It's now 1st and 10 in the red zone. 1st down here, Rigdon throws it, and it's tipped up and almost picked off, but fortunately for them, dropped here. So 2nd down for Barton and Rigdon. Rigdon throws the slant to long, reaches over and gets in to make it 43-33. Now, it's a 10-point game here. Barton has to go for 2 here. If they do not go for 2 here or don't get it, then it stays a 2-score game here. And if you get the chance to go ahead and tie this thing up on one drive, That's what you want, right? And so here we go. They're going for it. Rigdon gets the snap, throws the corner to Valerie Njabata, but this one is well covered, double coverage, and it is picked off here. It's eventually pitched forward by accident, I think, by the corner, but it doesn't matter as that happened after the pick, so that PAT doesn't count. It stays a 10-point lead with 8 minutes left. Luckily for Barton, Lees-McRae goes ahead and goes 3 and out, almost threw an interception on third down on the post route as Barton was picking up on that. And so they get the ball with less than 6 minutes left and a 1st and 14 past midfield. All right, so Barton and Rigdon looking to go to work here. Rigdon, with a lot of time here, ends up throwing it short to Bada, who gets a decent gain here out of the flats to make it 1st and 19 in the red zone. Another red zone trip here, but looking to cash in. Rigdon finds Bada again for 4. Following that, she finds Basa on another drag route to go for 5. And then on 3rd and 10, Rigdon with the snap overthrows this one over some receivers. So that's incomplete. It's now 4th down. They call a timeout at 4:07, which is a little risky because you definitely need those to stop the clock here. But they call the timeout to talk about it because you got to get a score first here. And here's what happens. Rigdon with the snap just overthrows it once again. And so once again, it is an incompletion and another turnover on downs here, as it is not looking good for Barton. Lees-McRae, they get the ball with the 1st and 10 and counting, and they are able to get across midfield as they are just chewing the clock here. Eventually, they are forced to punt it, but there's only 30 seconds left here. Barton needs to score twice in 30 seconds, and I don't think they have any timeouts left. And so they run a couple plays, get some yards, and then this one is over as they would not be able to get too much on that last drive anyways. Lees-McRae gets a huge win in Conference Carolina's play, arguably an upset win, 43-33 here. Playmaker of the game has to be Mackenzie Hicks, 341 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 39 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown in what I would say is probably a signature win for her in her career. And she's had some other great games, obviously, as well, like winning the first one for Lees-McRae, William Woods, and then some other big games, statistical games as well. But I think this one, she just played lights out here and played at a very high level, was extremely locked in the entire game. Also got to credit her receivers, who I also considered for Playmaker of the game here, but she had both of them that had a really good game. Let's talk about her receiving leaders. Kennedy Van Noy, 7 receptions, 142 yards, and 2 touchdowns, just super slippery, and was a big play threat out there and was a problem against Barton. And then you have Natalia Hernandez de Leon, who had no problem making physical catch after tough catch. When you needed a play, she gave you one and some. And so that was absolutely massive. Ashley Alvarado continues to do her thing as well, 4 for 41 and a touchdown. Julia Lampton, 7 for 24. Ava Rivera, 2 for 22. And Tammy Chatwood, 2 for 11. Rushing wise, Chatwood had a decent game here. Really all direct snaps, but just super speedy and elusive, 69 rushing yards and that rushing touchdown. Hicks also had those 39 yards and a rushing touchdown, as this Lees-McRae offense may have looked the best they have ever this season in that game. So there you go. Defensively, before we move on to Barton, defensively, they also played well. They got 4 interceptions as a team. Mackenzie Walker, Sydney Stigler, Ashley Alvarado, Sandra Mason, all getting big-time interceptions. They also got another interception on a PAT, but that one was pitched forward, so I don't think that was counted. It was also on a PAT, so there's that as well. So technically 5 interceptions here, but this DB group was flying and giving, they were giving Sawyer Rigdon some issues out there, and that ended up making them lose that game. So shout out the defense. They played great here. Van Noy with a sack here, by the way. And then your lead flag puller was Mackenzie Walker with 11. For Barton College, Sawyer Rigdon threw for a lot of yards here. 461 yards, 5 touchdowns, but you can't ignore the 4 interceptions, especially one of those being a pick 6 early on, and then the others coming on throughout, pretty much earlier in the game here. You just can't start a game like that against a team like this who is so explosive on offense and expect to win. Rigdon had 27 rushing yards. Receiving wise, they had 2 receivers of their own who had big games. Valerie and Jabata, 12 receptions, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns. Zania Long, 8 receptions, 126 yards, 2 touchdowns. Sarah Merritt, 9 for 71 and a touchdown. Eloni Bassa, 4 for 26. Deja Reed, 4 for 23. And Sydney Dash, 1 for 8 here. But like I said, the turnovers early on were just tough, and it wasn't like tipped up, like at least not too many of them, tipped up turnovers. Most of them were just not good decisions. And I mean, she's a young quarterback. It obviously shows in this stat line here, as she has a whole bunch of potential and talent here, but just did not have a great start to this game, and just couldn't quite put it together. Even then, having a bad start to this game, there are some opportunities at the end here in the 4th and 3rd where they got to the red zone and they just would not come up with the score. Just tough throws here. And so, with all that being said, I think Rigdon's going to be fine. She's a young quarterback. She'll figure it out. Mackenzie Hicks was literally in that exact position last year with William Woods. It takes some experience to figure out how to consistently win here. So there you go. It is what it is. Defensively, you had Alexis Whedon lead with 8 flagpoles, Angie Lara with a sack, and then no turnovers for this Barton defense here, who I feel like usually comes up with turnovers. But like I said, this Lees-McRae offense was really sharp with it. There's some throws here in one-on-one that receivers just ended up winning over DBs. And they just had him. They had their number this game here. So unfortunately for Barton, they drop a tough one in Conference Carolina's play, as Lees-McRae picks up a big win in Conference Carolina's play at the moment here. Just looking at the standings, and it is April 6th when I'm recording this Monday. Wingate is currently in the lead with a 7-1 conference record, but Lees-McRae right behind them right now with a 7-1 conference record. Then you have Ferrum at 5-1, and then Barton with their second conference loss here. They are 6-2 now. So it's not over. I mean, you have not too many games, a couple more games here coming up before you have your conference tournament here. But it is looking very tight near the top here. And, it's going to be really interesting to see how this unfolds the next 2 weeks before they get into conference play. Now, I will say this, going into that conference tournament here, it'll definitely be interesting who gets ranked where. But I think the most important thing is that teams learn from, those early regular season games, because you could definitely see some different outcomes going into that conference tournament now that they've all played each other, right? And have gotten, a decent footing into their season, and they're late in the season as well, so they're definitely in form here as far as that goes. So we'll see what happens, right? We'll see what happens moving forward. But another banger of a game out of the Conference Carolinas. Lees-McRae takes down Barton at home 43-33. All right, now I got your JUCO recap here for week 8 here, and it's a little bit of a shorter recap. Nobody really posted any box scores, so it's just going to be a lot of scores here. One did, so kind of, sort of, it's a recap article, so I'll make sure to talk about that. But let's go ahead and start with Monday, March 30th. Daytona State plays DuPage, and they go ahead and beat them 46-14. DuPage then plays UCF's club team, and UCF beats them 38-0, so a tough day for DuPage, but good experience regardless. The next day, Tuesday, the 31st of March, El Camino would go ahead and drop a tough one to Cypress, 48-13 here. Ventura would then go ahead and play Norco in California, by the way, and beat them 52-6. Playmaker of that game is Ava Ortman, who had 5 touchdown passes and a rushing touchdown, and Alicia Brewer had 3 of those touchdown passes, and then Sammy Nava led the defense with 2 interceptions. Both of those early in the third as that game got out of hand pretty quickly. On Wednesday, April 1st, Bryan and Stratton falls to Aurora 27-12. Florida Gateway, in a rematch with Daytona State, continues to make their dominance known, at least in the JUCO world, as they beat Daytona State once more 25-7. And that's a tough one for Daytona State, who will not play them again until the postseason, which will be in a couple weeks. So there you go. On the second, going back to California, Irvine Valley beats Cypress 26-0. Saddleback beats Golden West 20-7. And that brings us to our Friday slate of games here, where Hartford Community College out of Maryland would lose to Cedar Crest in a close one, 12-6, and then beat Manor 52-0, splitting on the day. Going on to our last day of JUCO games, Saturday, April 4th, Santa Barbara Community College would play USC's club team and beat them 25-18. Going back over to the Midwest here, Pratt Community College would play Benedictine from Illinois and beat them in a dominant fashion, 48-0, a good win for Pratt Community. DuPage would also play D3 Benedictine, and they would beat them as well in a closer one, 15-6. And then following that, Pratt Community College would play DuPage, and they would beat them 22-6 as Pratt goes undefeated. DuPage splits on this day. And then last but not least, we have a new community college out of Alabama, Snead State. They would lose to Point, an NAIA team, 31-7. And there you go. That'll wrap up your JUCO recap.
Hello, everybody. It is your host for this episode, Kodey Stauffer, with the Playmaker's Corner podcast. And I got a lot of recapping to get through for you today. There's a ton of games and also an instant classic that I get to recap. So go ahead and buckle in as we got plenty of games to talk about. But beginning on March 30th here, we had Montclair beat Long Island University 31-0, so that keeps us moving along. In addition to that, in March 31st, Immaculata beat Penn State Schuylkill here and Centenary 33-6 and 44-0 respectively. Meanwhile, Eastern cruised to a 55-0 victory over Mercy University here in some Tuesday action. And then we also had a pretty good game here between Penn State Schuylkill and Centenary here. Both teams scoring 7 in that first frame. Penn State pulling away a little bit right before half, taking a 21-19 lead into the second half, and then would score 2 more touchdowns in the third quarter to try and put this game away. Now Centenary would score another touchdown and convert on a 2-point conversion to make this final score 27-33, but that would not be enough here as Penn State Schuylkill gets the victory here. Abry Brown here with a 240-yard, 4-touchdown performance for the play caller here. Meanwhile, she also was able to find Michaela Hill on a few handoffs, who picked up 44 yards. But Michaela Johnson really took over this game. 6 receptions, 143 yards, and 2 scores, including a long of 66 yards. On the other side of the ball here, Centenary got 3 touchdowns, but also 2 interceptions thrown by Keisha Foster here. But as we have known from these box scores, she is just an absolute animal on the ground. She ran 18 times for 149 yards as well as a touchdown, averaging over 8 yards per carry, helping keep the Cyclones in this game. In addition, finding Nevaeh O'Keefe on a 66-yard touchdown herself to try and keep this close. Now, the Penn State defense did get 2 interceptions out of Miranda Morstadt here that she returned for plenty of yards, but Centenary here did get a few more tackles for loss that kind of helped even things out and keep them in this game. But overall here, it was a nice Penn State win. And in addition to that, we had a classic game between Hartwick and Russell Sage College that I will do a full game or have done a full game recap on. And so you need to listen to that, as this game came down to the final play of the game here, but resulted in a Gator W. Moving along to April 1st here. On April Fool's Day, we had some teams looking like fools, but some teams who really brought the action here. Gallaudet was one who beat Lancaster Bible College 41-0. You also had the University of Mount Olive defeating Hollins 18-0. Aurora, Illinois beat Bryan and Stratton 27-12, while Morgan had 3 passing touchdowns and no interceptions at quarterback. And Penn State Harrisburg won 34-6 over Keystone College. But I really had to appreciate Sonny Geneseo here, or SUNY Geneseo, holding off and starting off on the right foot here, 21-13, beating Brockport here. Malene Como had an interception that opened up the offense to score a long touchdown. Brockport would actually take the lead here, leading 13-7, but the Knights would persevere with Kenna McKenzie catching her second touchdown of the game to take a 14-13 lead just before halftime. And then Natalia DePalma would have a big punt return that would be the cherry on top and dagger in the 21-13 win for Geneseo here. On April 2nd, you had Immaculata beating Schuylkill 27-6 and then getting a forfeit win over Centenary in their kind of jamboree setup. Schuylkill would then bounce back and get a 33-14 win themselves over Centenary. Eastern, meanwhile, had 2 games here to try and maintain their powerhouse spot here in D3, defeating Holy Family 47-14 and Newman 40-6, forcing 6 interceptions on defense and getting 416 yards of offense in these wins. Newman would get their own win over Holy Family and pitch a shutout, scoring 39 of their own en route to their victory. Marymount would play Chestnut Hill twice in this day, scoring 118 points, gaining 636 yards of offense, getting 5 interceptions, and also getting a special teams touchdown via a Kayla Barr punt return. St. Joseph's would beat Long Island 33-6, and then Rockford would pick up a 14-6 win over Wisconsin Oshkosh here, or Oshkosh. Quintasia Mills had 134 rushing yards and a score to keep the Regents afloat for the win, as UWO scored too little too late to come back in this one. While the Regents got great defensive contributions from Keisha here with a team-high 8 flagpoles, 4 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks in the win. Geneseo would continue their winning ways here, defeating Sage 27-0. Meanwhile, Cedar Crest would pick up wins over Manor College and Harford Community College to go 2-0 on April 3rd. Continuing with April 3rd action, Brockport cruised to a 31-6 win over Elmira College, but Hartwick after that would lose another heartbreaker on their week, 28-18 to Via Maria. Mercyhurst would play Cal, Pennsylvania twice here. The second game was close, as Mercyhurst only won that one by a score. Meanwhile, in the first game, they just got way better defensive effort, forcing 3 punts, 3 sacks, and 2 picks. While in the second game, it was more of their secondary stepping up here, forcing 3 interceptions to win the turnover battle and the game. In a massive cross-division matchup, you had Gallaudet facing Ferrum here. And Ferrum is one of the best teams in the Conference Carolinas, and they showed why early, scoring 13 points in the first half to take that lead. But the Bison would rally, score on a Visco touchdown run to make it 13-6, and then get a pick 6 from their defense at the start of the fourth quarter to make it 13-12. But the Panthers' defense held strong and allowed neither extra point conversion, and that led to the Bison's first loss in program history. All things considered, this is a darn good Ferrum squad, and Gallaudet showed that they could hang with some of the most powerful teams in the country here. Ferrum consistently ranked in the top 20 for us here at PMC over the past few weeks, top 15, and even getting some top 10 votes depending on the poll. So this was a very good performance for Gallaudet that shows that at their best they could hang with some of the best teams in the country, and it makes me feel bad for Bison opponents in the future this season. On April 4th, Allegheny beat Slippery Rock Chatham and then would lose to Bethany. Geneseo and St. Joseph's would play a one-score thriller as the Golden Eagles started off on the right foot, forcing an interception and scoring off of a Williams touchdown reception to go up 6-0. But the Knights would swing it back in their favor, scoring 2 consecutive touchdowns and going up 13-6. St. Joseph, however, trying to remain undefeated, would get a rushing touchdown before half, but the Knights would also respond with another one that would put them back up by a score. St. Joseph would roar back with mere moments left in the first half as Williams caught a 20-yard score from Marchese, and with a Caputo conversion, it was a 19-19 game heading into halftime, but a Geneseo interception led to ideal field position and eventually a touchdown for a 26-19 lead that they would never relinquish and get a game-sealing interception as St. Joseph loses their first game of the season, much to Geneseo's delight as they continue an awesome win streak from this week. St. Joseph would get back on track, beating the College at Old Westbury, and Geneseo would finish off their week undefeated, defeating Old Westbury as well, 34-0. Elmira would bounce back with a win over Sage, 25-13, and then Hartwick would finally get a win here that they had been grinding for all week, beating Deauville 33-18. DuPage and Benedictine University lost to Pratt Community College, but DuPage defeated Benedictine, making them the 0-2 D3 team out of their little jamboree. Purdue Northwest and Marion played a one-score nail-biter, resulting in a final of 12-6. After a stalemate through one, Daniela Shaname put Marion on the board with a near full-field touchdown run here, going 78 yards to the house for the lead. It wasn't until the second half that Purdue Northwest would get on the board once Marilyn Myrick finished a drive to Emma Angelink for a touchdown to tie it up. We have to fast forward all the way to the end of the fourth quarter with under a minute to go and overtime on the line. Purdue Northwest hunkered down and got an Olivia Washington reception for 37 yards to get nice and close in the red zone. And on the following play, Alexis Wade would make the game-sealing touchdown catch here. Now, I shouldn't say game-sealing, but the go-ahead touchdown catch, as Marion would have 17 seconds left and get darn near to midfield, but Isis Harden would get her 4th interception of the game for Purdue Northwest and seal it for a 12-6 win in favor of Purdue Northwest over Marion. Aurora, Illinois remains undefeated after picking up wins over Purdue University Northwest as well as Marion University. Kaylin Morgan threw these games through 8 touchdowns to 7 different receivers in an absolute masterclass performance of a day under center while adding on another 150 yards on the ground as well. Illinois Wesleyan got the better of Illinois College, this time on the road to the tune of a 21-7 win. Wesleyan was just surgically precise, gaining 323 yards and forcing a few turnovers while playing clean football on their end, with Deanna Sarabia having a good showing, 8 catches for 106 yards and a score. Meanwhile, it's worth mentioning that Abby Flowers was doing what she could to keep Illinois in this one with 11 catches of her own, as well as over 100 yards of gain. Whew, that was quite a rundown of all of these games here in the D3 action that I was able to catch from this week. Please be sure to listen to the full recap as I got quite an exciting one from that Russell Sage and Hartwick game, but that is going to be the D3 recap for Playmaker's Corner this week, brought to you by me, Kodey Stoffer. All right, folks, we got an absolute classic here that took place in Albany, New York at the ACPHS Athletic Complex here between the Russell Sage College Gators and the Hartwick Hawks here. Now, Hartwick here establishing their identity early, has the ball and runs a speed option just shy of the first down and come right back to it on the very next play for a first down. Another run puts them about 7 yards away from the first down where they do a jet sweep handoff to number 20, who sets up third and about 3. On this play, Dahl, number 3, fakes the jet sweep and comes back the other way for a first down and plenty more. However, a handful of penalties would stall this drive out and ultimately force a punt from Hartwick. Now, Russell Sage would get a good return that would put them about 10 yards away from midfield, but a delay of game would quickly burst that optimism that started the drive, and the offense would have to punt just a few plays later. Now, the speed option left is where Hartwick comes out with here, and that would be halted by number 24 on defense. So Hartwick wants to go the other direction on the very next play, and that sets up 3rd and 1. On this 3rd and 1, they motion from left to right, fake the handoff, and plant and step into a short route here that picks up a first down. A couple of plays later, following an errant pitch and a short run, number 3, Dahl, rolls right, winds up and finds 11 on the wheel route for the score. Touchdown, Hartwick, and the PAT for 2 points is good to number 20, and that sets up an 8-0 Hartwick lead. Now, Russell Sage comes out, and a penalty on 2nd down provides some worry and maybe some flashbacks from the last drive, but it is no worries here as number 4 rushes ahead for the first down regardless. Now, 21 seems to be the go-to playmaker here as she catches a pass, receives a jet sweep, and on 4th down and 5, following her run on the jet sweep, gets a pass on the very next play left, extending ahead for a first down into Hartwick territory. 3 then catches the next pass to make it 2nd and 8, but on the very next play, a penalty almost pushes them to midfield. They bring 21 in motion again, who receives the jet sweep, looking to pass, but is flushed towards the sideline and amidst some pressure, escapes ahead, setting up 3rd and 2. Now, who else but number 21? You've been hearing the number. Now you're going to know her name. Clara Stolica here makes the catch and advances into the red zone. And following another play, that will be the end of the first quarter as the Gators are trailing but are in scoring position, trying to close the gap. They start the second quarter with a quick strike over the middle to number 24, pushing them ahead about 10 yards and now facing 3rd and goal. Hartwick responds with a big-time flagpole on a run play and forces 4th down, but on the next play, Bianca Ricciotto here finds number 24, NAIA Kelly, for the score as she stumbles ahead amidst a missed flagpole here. And while the PAT is no good, Russell Sage is on the board, trailing 6-8. Coming out of that, Hartwick here gets a couple of runs from Audra Dahl here that sets up a first down right outside of their own red zone. Now, a couple plays later, Dahl is going to start left and then cut back right across the field, up the sideline, past midfield, and is tripped up, drawing a penalty and gifting the Hawks a few extra yards. Now, the drive almost stalls out here as the Gators straighten out on defense and force a 4th down and short, but Dahl escapes left and picks up a first down into the red zone. Following that, there's a swing pass that picks up a decent amount of yards, but a penalty and an incompletion force them into 2nd and 19. Now, another incompletion / short rush sets up 4th down and approximately 15 yards as Hartwick takes their first time out. And on 4th down, Dahl is going to step back, no motion, look and throws, and is picked off by number 5, Ali Salvioni here, giving Russell Sage the football right back just inside of their own red zone, and notching a major stop here with Hartwick in scoring position. Now, with the ball inside the red zone, it doesn't take long as Kaylee Dean takes a small dump off ahead for a first down. And then Bianca Ricciotto at Q doesn't see anything she likes and takes ahead and sprints for a first down just past midfield. Things would get wild as Sage's drive was on the verge of stalling out following some short or no gain plays. With 4th and 17 until the red zone, Ricciotto takes a step left and hucks it downfield where Haley Blake goes top shelf above the defender for the catch and wins the sprint down the sideline for the score. And on top of that, with a successful point after touchdown conversion, it is a 13-8 Russell Sage lead. Hartwick here is going to follow and have some untimely collapses here while, surviving those. Initially, Dahl will go up the gut for a first down, but the Gators would respond aggressively with high-level flag pulling that would force a punt. The Gators would then start the drive just outside of their red zone, but wouldn't build much of a drive and are forced to punt, thanks in part to a nice flag pull by Zion Harrison on third down to finish off that drive. Now, the punt would result in a touchback here, and Dahl would go up the middle and somehow run between like 4 defenders all the way to the 30-yard line. The Hawks continue to spam the Dahl runs as she goes right past midfield and then left to about the 22-yard line before Sage takes a timeout to recompose themselves here near the red zone. With only one play left, Hartwick takes a shot, but it's incomplete, and Russell Sage will take a 13-8 lead into halftime and also begin the second half with the football here. The very first play would find number 13, Cassidy Ware, here on the catch past the first down marker. After a couple of botches, they go back to the well and find 21, who sprints ahead to set up fourth and a way more manageable 5 than where they were. And on this play, they're going to go for it. Ricciotto looks, plants, sprints, and Carioca's ahead for a first down. They have 10 come in motion on the jet sweep from left to right, finding the edge and advancing just about 2 yards away from the red zone. The defense is going to swarm on the very next play and set up third down, but on this third down, we're going to have the quarterback step up, step right, and laser a pass to an open NAIA Kelly down the middle for a first down into the red zone. Stodolka gets the jet sweep left to right and isn't stopped until basically the 3-yard line. Hartwick, however, responds with a great pass rush to force a bad throw and make it 3rd and goal, but it is just too short of a distance to gain, and on the rollout right, it's going to be Kaylee Dean with the touchdown catch here and advancing the Gators to a 19-8 lead that remains that way with no PAT. By just barely here, Hartwick is going to keep their drive alive to the 20-yard line in a very close speed option that gets out of their red zone. And just 2 plays later, if it worked once, it'll work again. Ellie Kalbach runs the wheel route and is hit in stride, putting the Hawks all the way to the 30-yard line of the Gators' territory. A couple more pass plays pass by, and the Hawks are suddenly in the red zone after a catch on all hitches and a speed option pitch that gets inside of the 10-yard line following some very fully horizontal field navigation. On the very next play here, it's going to be Ann Stanovich bringing the dream full circle, cashing in on the option for the touchdown here and cutting into that Russell Sage lead. Now, the Gators come out, and Dean advances the ball just outside the 20 for a first down, but the Hawks would hatch down their defenses here and force a punt, taking over on their own 33-yard line. Stanovich would have her number called and take the first play just outside of the Gators' 30-yard line after a few missed flag pulls. They come right back to it, going the other way, but Sage is more prepared this time and keeps the gain minimized. A penalty and incompletion is starting to make me wonder if this drive will be a lost cause, but just when you think it might be over, it's actually just getting started as Dahl rolls left, throws left, finds Bailey McCoy, who makes the catch, spins around, and scores! This, along with the conversion caught by Stanovich, makes it a Hawks lead for the first time since the first quarter, 21-19 in favor of Hartwick. Now, the very first play for the Gators almost ends in disaster as Hartwick drops a would-be pick. However, the key word here is drops, and they survive and head into the 4th quarter. On the first play here, Bianca scampers and skips ahead for a first down to the 21. A swing pass is then completed along with another completion that sets up a massive 4th down and 5 with a first down not just wanted but needed. Ricciotto drops back and slings it to Kelly, who spins ahead for a first down and more all the way to the 30-yard line of enemy territory. Sage will come back and simplify things, getting the ball to 21 on a jet sweep that is ruled down just inside the red zone. Zion Harrison reminds everyone who she is, however, and is in the backfield for a sack on the very next play, pushing Sage out of the red zone and forcing a longer conversion for points. However, Ricciotto is going to wind up and lob a pass that only 24 can reach, and she does and lands with the catch, putting them at about 3rd down and 8 until the goal line. On 3rd down, once again, just absolutely unguardable is number 24, NAIA Kelly, making the catch, cannot be stopped by this Hartwick defense, and the PAT is no good, but the lead is good, as now it favors Russell Sage 25-21 in this absolutely zany back and forth contest here. Hartwick here in the 4th quarter here comes out with motion, setting up a speed option where number 20 evades a few flagpoles and gets a 1st down. The drive continues and gets electric when Dahl runs left, stutters, and bursts right for a 1st down into the Gators side of the field. The horrors continue for Russell Sage as a million missed flagpoles results in number 20 cutting across the field all the way inside the red zone. On the very next play, though, they get a calming playmaking presence as Kelly gets a great flagpole on the next play for no gain or maybe even a loss. The next speed option to 20, however, gets outside and sets up 3rd and 13. They then go the other direction and skip ahead to about the 4-yard line here. Now, it is 4th down. They're going to have some motion. They're going to hand off to Bailey McCoy on a jet sweep, who looks ahead and instead of tucking and running, passes to Stanovich on the jet sweep pass for the touchdown and the lead. And by some miracle on the PAT, a pass is lobbed into the end zone and falls harmlessly into the Hawks' hands for the 28-25 lead with under 6 minutes to go. Just brilliant play calling here, setting up this sweep, setting up this option all game, and now they come out and run the jet sweep pass that scores a touchdown in the red zone and gives them a lead late here in the 4th quarter. Now, Russell Sage trying to make a story out of this game. This is where dreams are made, and Ricciotto helps provide a sigh of relief to start, escaping the red zone for a 1st down on 3rd down. However, things get really scary on the next play when a pass is almost intercepted, but somehow tipped in the air and caught by 21 for a gain of 10, along with drawing a holding penalty on the defense that puts them about 5 yards from midfield. But that nightmare was actually going to be a premonition of things to come as the quarterback overthrows a receiver and is picked off by Dahl, now making plays on the defensive side of the ball. And with about 3.5 minutes to go and a running offense here, the Hawks are in prime position to grind this clock out in a very comfortable spot. And Russell Sage definitely a little frustrated here as they kind of had a warning graze across the nose with that tip drill that was somehow caught, but the very next play left no doubts as the Hartwick defense capitalized and got an interception that they had been kind of dancing around all day, and they got it at maybe the perfect time with about 3.5 minutes to go. Now the Hawks run, and they are going to get to the 2-minute warning with 3 points in hand and 2 downs to get into the Russell Sage red zone to ice the game. But Hartwick comes out with some serious hunger in their eyes and calls a double pass on 2nd down with the jet sweep pass, I should say. But Kelly, with an incredibly disciplined and well-timed pull, records a sack that is quickly followed by a Russell Sage timeout. Now, coming out of the timeout, Hartwick, you can tell that they just want to eat Russell Sage's hearts out, and they try a deep shot here, but it is the Bianca Ricciotto redemption tour amending her error and getting an interception on her DB QB counterpart and returning it just shy of midfield. But she doesn't want us to get too comfortable here watching the game as a dangerous pass starts off the Gator drive with about 1.5 minutes to go, and I am not sure if Ricciotto realizes, but Hartwick is not apt to pass the ball again should they force another turnover with this lead. But a dangerous lob somehow gets to number 13, just past two defenders who just misread it, and lands on her back past the first down line. There's going to be an incompletion here, and now it is 2nd and goal here. And Ricciotto is going to drop back, look ahead, pass it up high, and it's going to be caught by NAIA Kelly, who spins ahead, running ahead, and past a missed flagpole into the end zone here, giving the Gators a 31-28 lead despite another failed PAT. NAIA Kelly absolutely unguardable at the receiver spot, too tall, too skilled, and has way too good of hands to be left in those one-on-one situations, making Hartwick pay for not learning their lesson. But the Hawks still have 37 seconds to amend for their mistake and try and escape out of here with a win that felt like they had it in hand just a few minutes ago. Dahl uncorks one on first down, but it is out of bounds, and that winds the clock down to about 30 seconds. Russell Sage is going to take a timeout and try and recompose, and we are back with a Dahl rush just outside of the red zone to the right and out of bounds. She then throws a beautiful strike down the right sideline that is dropped, and you can hear and feel the audible gasp as well as the sigh from the stands, as both fan sections are present in this game and audio-wise hearable on the stream, which I think just makes it a bit more invested and fun for me here at home on the other side of the stream. But back to the ball game here, trying to shrug off that heartbreaking drop here. It's not going to look great here for the Hawks as they have a false start and things are looking bleak with about 20 seconds left. But Bailey McCoy catches a pass down the middle, runs past midfield, and draws a hold on the defense that puts them at about the 32-yard line, which is definitely within range of Dahl's arm talent. Now there's 10 seconds left. They're going to throw another pass to McCoy, who runs ahead, and they just barely get a timeout off, leaving 3 seconds on the clock and 15 yards to reclaim the victory that had slipped through their fingers earlier and that they hope to re-grasp. And here you have it. It's the last play of the game. We got 3 receivers on the left, 2 receivers on the right. They're going to motion one of the receivers in from the trip side to be an extra blocker. Dahl gets the snap, scoots right, makes a juke, cuts back left, uncorks a pass to the back left corner of the end zone to a wide open receiver who makes the catch, but is out of bounds. And the Gators escape by the literal skin of their teeth, and Hartwick experiences an absolute heartbreaker, and the Gators get a huge break here, winning this one 31-28 in a game that saw multiple lead changes and was just electric from start to finish here. If you include that very first score, there were 6 lead changes in this game and just nonstop action from both sides. And I want to run through some team stats and some final thoughts here. Hartwick actually picked up 4 more first downs than Russell Sage, but that is kind of par for the course when you are a predominantly rushing team here. And boy, did they put together plenty of yards here. 457 yards of total offense from Hartwick here. 168 passing yards and 289 rushing yards, almost tripling the amount of rushing yards that Russell Sage had. Meanwhile, Russell Sage outpassed this team 249 yards, and you could probably pick up on that based off of the game recap on how many rushing attempts versus how many passing attempts there were. Hartwick here, 44 rushing attempts in this game overall. Really, maybe a couple less if you include like attempted jet sweep passes, but either way, just very different philosophies on display here. 2 sacks for Russell Sage, 1 sack for Hartwick, 1 interception for Hartwick that I thought was going to seal the deal, but 2 interceptions from Russell Sage, including the one that helps them stay in this ball game. Now, some final thoughts I have. Oh my gosh, I wasn't sure if anyone wanted to win this game here at the end. Exchanging interceptions, allowing big completions, leaving receivers open. My head was spinning trying to keep up with this finale. But I'll be damned if I was not entertained. This game literally had everything. Big plays, filled out drives, fourth down conversions, trick plays, turnovers, and came down to the very last play in the game. Raising my hands, absolute cinema in this game, and one that these teams and athletes will not be forgetting anytime soon. Speaking on behalf of Hartwick, Dahl put together a pretty crazy game, rushing for 185 yards and passing for another 165, but was really inconsistent through the air, completing less than 50% of her passes, and also play call-wise just should not have been throwing with under 2 minutes to go in the game. Now, I am a coach who has gotten greedy and went for an unnecessarily risky kill shot, so I am allowed to say this. It is boneheaded and it's just foolish. And I'm saying to myself that when I did it, it was boneheaded, but I got away with mine. I got lucky. Meanwhile, not everyone is so lucky, and that was the story of Hartwick today, who despite that still had a chance to win this game at the end. They showed awesome and brave play calling earlier, such as the trick play on the jet sweep from McCoy to Stanovich that gained a lead in the fourth quarter. It was well set up and well executed at a critical moment. But that is going to be mostly lost to time following the 2 consecutive passes, up 3 with 15 yards and a couple of downs to go. When your identity is that you run the football and you have over 40 rush attempts in the game and you have a 3-point lead, that's the time to run the ball. And it's just a brutal, brutal way to lose. Now, the Gators, I'd say on the other side, had more basic and fundamental mistakes, but it is worth mentioning that Dahl put them in a position to win, as in Hartwick here, and the Gators completely blow a coverage here, and if this ball is just slightly more in bounds, the Hawks do win this game despite their mistakes, because the Gators are also making mistakes of their own, but sometimes it pays to be lucky instead of good. But the Gators had plenty moments of both this game. I would say that obviously this last play of the game, being ruled out of bounds, and which, watching upon it a couple times, it definitely looks like a foot lands outside of the end zone first, whether it's on that boundary line or just completely out. And it's a great and really tough call to make by the Stripes, who were pretty involved this game, maybe a little too involved, very inconsistent, I think, as far as what they were seeing and what they weren't seeing. But, as far as penalties go, let's see. I am actually curious on this. They did favor Russell Sage. Russell Sage, 5 penalties for 25 yards. Meanwhile, 10 penalties for 59 yards committed on Hartwick. But that last little hold does push them into better field position on that last drive. So I don't think it felt biased anyway. I just also wouldn't say it felt competent. But back to the Gators here, pays to be lucky instead of good. Like I said, plenty of moments of both. That last play, the play calling for Hartwick, resulting in them passing a couple times when maybe they shouldn't have, but good enough to make the plays when presented with the opportunities. NAIA Kelly, she is really, really good here and had an amazing game. 7 receptions for 100 yards, 3 touchdowns, with each one of them, I believe, being a chance to take a lead or enhance a lead, and just putting on a great display at receiver. But on defense as well, 7 pulls on defense, 2 being sacks for a total of 4 for loss here. Just a game wrecker on both sides of the ball, and definitely the playmaker of the game. But I also need to talk about Bianca Ricciotto there, who put the passes in position for Kelly to make those plays. And after throwing that interception, showing phenomenal poise, showing phenomenal clutch gene, getting back on defense, brushing it off, and making a play to put your team back in the game, and then leading a game-winning drive, adding that to her resume. Just sensational stuff that stories are made of. She ended up finishing the day 24 of 37 for 242 yards and 5 scores to just the 1 pick. And there's plenty of quarterbacks in this country where after that interception, there's no way that they're getting back on defense, whether A, they don't play two sides of the ball, or B, mentality-wise are able to shrug that off. But not only does she shrug it off, she shrugs it off, continues playing, makes a play to put herself back in position of the game, and then comes down and leads a game-winning drive and finds a NAIA Kelly for that go-ahead touchdown here. And once again, I just can't help but feel a little bit for Hartwick here, putting the heartbreak in Hartwick as that last catch is just ruled out of bounds. Really, really close. I mean, basically a foot away from winning this touchdown and coming away with a win. But there's a reason that football is called a game of inches, and the inches fell in favor of the Russell Sage Gators, pulling out the 3-point thriller, 31-28 over the visiting Hartwick Hawks. I hope to get some more crazy recaps out of this D3 level, but this one might be the one of the season for now as far as recaps that I've got to do. But be sure to listen to my other co-host recaps of their divisions as well as the games, as we always choose the instant classics to bring to you, the listener, here on Playmaker's Corner.
And that'll wrap up this episode of the Playmaker's Corner. Thank you so much for rocking with us. Make sure you check out episode 510 on Thursday. We will do our rankings and recognitions episode where we will go over our rankings and then we will go over some recognitions here. A little bit of some changes this week. We're going to shift our focus more towards the postseason as we are much closer to that. So make sure you go ahead and check us out at Playmaker's Corner on social media and take a look at our website at playmakerscorner.com. But until then, we'll catch you next time.